Now we are moving to item number 10. Another resource management agency report. This is accept a report on Betabel seasonal produce stand project. Mike?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Supervisor Tiffany. Tavin Kinnison Brown, our principal planner, has prepared a presentation for you. Unfortunately, he's also under the weather, so he's at home too. So if somebody can pull him in, there he is, and take it away, Tavin.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you. Share my screen. All these buttons. There we go. All right. So thank you for bearing with me working from home with the illness. So the Betabel site is one of the commercial nodes identified in the 2035 general plan off of Highway 101. And historically, there's been a lot of activity at this site. This visual, looking in a southwesterly view, shows some of the structures that have historically been on the property. Kind of quite a full site. In 2018, the present landowners applied for demolition of permitted and non-permitted structures. Basically, 5,700 square foot wood steel building, 9,000 square foot steel building, modular home, and also demolished some concrete slab out there. So from the image before, represented approximately 15,000 square feet of structures. So this was 2018. 2 years following, in 2020, the applicant applied for the reconstruction of a commercial structure, a new produce stand, if you would. This proposal was 6,262 square feet, and accompanied by a restroom facility. So approximately 7,130 square feet. Here's some other views of the same application that was applied for in 2020. And that building permit was approved in February of 2021 under a former RMA director. Presently, this is a site view of the seasonal produce stand, which is a structure right here totaling a little over 6,000 square feet and 868 square foot restrooms, so a little over 7,130 square feet. And that's what people see on the property right now. I'm going to share a different image for a moment. So this, I've got 3 images here. One moment here. There we go. So this is an image, obviously from a higher elevation, but still looking in that southwestern, that southwestern view of some unpermitted uses that were subject to code enforcement, as well as those some of those existing structures that were requested for demolition.
But Tavin, we're not seeing the images. You need to change your screen.
Oh, well, thank you. Can I get back to my share screen then? Uh-oh. No, it's not the one. Are you seeing images now? Hello?
Proposed amphitheater.
Yes, we can see it. That's with the overlay of the proposed project. So there should be 2 other images.
Yeah, I'm actually, wow. So on my screen is a different one. Great. That's helpful. Not.
We're gonna share it on our side. Or we're gonna post it on this side.
I don't think you've got the three I'm talking about. All right, what's on your screen now, sir? Blue line?
Betabel site activities.
This is ours, though.
Oh, okay.
We don't have any pictures.
We don't have his. Okay. But yeah, you're right, Tavin. We don't have it. You want more time, Tavin?
Well, yeah, I'm a little frustrated. Sorry. I think there's this thing where I discontinue sharing and then I start sharing again.
There you go.
All right. So now you're seeing something that says seasonal farm stand under construction.
Correct.
All right. Thank you. So if you can see my cursor in this area was on another slide I have some of those structures that were requested for demolition. Over 15,000 square feet, as long as some other structures. This is what people are seeing and experiencing under construction right now, approved by former director as kind of a continuing use of an agricultural produce stand. Okay. And so that's what's on the activity. That's what's happening on site right now. And if I could go back to just my slide for a moment. And here's the site plan. Is that what you're seeing now? The site plan again?
Still seeing seasonal farm stand.
All right. This is fun. Not. Well,
we have Betabel site activities up.
Well, good. Thank you. Now I just probably took it down again.
Yeah. Well,
let's go to conversation. If there are directed questions, I'll try it again. But that represents some of the current activities on the property approved by former directors. As you might have heard, is we have the applicant is thinking of a more comprehensive development and has submitted preliminary plans to the county. That the applicant on their side is still making a formal application for a fuller development that would be subject to public discussion, public hearings, and environmental documentation that is not on the table at this moment.
Okay, is that the entire presentation at the moment, Mike?
That includes what concludes what I have prepared. I know it can be a deep subject. At one point in history, people want different information, but that's what's before us right now.
First of all, before we get to public comment and board comment, are there some questions coming from the board? Supervisor Kosmicki?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I asked for this presentation due to concerns from residents, particularly in my district, and my own concerns driving by on Highway 101 because it obviously jumps out the size of the building. So the first question I have two questions. One, what, if any, limitations are there on the size of a building under these circumstances when the developer is circumventing the permitting process by designating it as a farm stand? And then second, I'm wondering what the timeline, if there is a timeline that the county has on when this project would finish and when they would potentially open that. Thank you.
You know, I'm going to wrap those two questions in one. You use the word circumvent, and actually the use of the farm stand would be contingent upon produce being grown and sold on the property. And then that would be consistent with the agricultural practices that underlie the zoning. So it's, you know, it's a process that's gone before the RMA in the past, through a past administration. It is under construction, and you know, for a farm stand, it is supposed to have those uses or depend upon those that produce. So to use the property in a different manner or to accompany other uses, that's what's being thought about, and plans are being developed and have yet to be presented to us in a full, robust nature that we can do an environmental review on. So that's still in the applicant's court.
So you're referring to the other components of the proposal. They're not the farm stand, or are you saying that there's consideration of using the farm stand for some other use?
I'm merely pointing out it's in the context of greater activities contemplated for the site.
Farm stand. I mean, is it?
Perhaps I can clarify that. The agricultural grazing zoning allows for a seasonal farm stand limited to produce grown on the site as a permitted use. And that was the basis of the application that was approved by Director Mavrogenis. And for produce that is not grown on the site or other commercial use, a conditional use permit would be required under the existing agricultural grazing zoning designation for the property. Neither of these are incorporating the C1 combining district zoning that has been approved, but is currently under litigation. There is no injunction prohibiting development using the C1 zoning. And so a conditional use permit would be required for the larger project, commercial project, consistent with the C1 zoning combining district. And that is, there's been a preliminary application submitted for that. A number of issues have been identified by staff that the applicant needs to address before submitting a formal application. And we don't have a specific timeline of when that complete application would be submitted.
Make this very clear. So is there any consideration for, the developer coming back after the building's been built, not going through the regular environmental process, coming back and now after the fact, wanting to change the designation to allow for some other sort of commercial use beyond just produce grown on the property?
No, that would require a conditional use permit. That is a discretionary permit, and that requires review under CEQA.
Okay, and you didn't answer my question about the limitations on the size of the building, I don't believe. So we don't have
the current ordinance has no limitations on the size of a seasonal produce stand. That's something that the board could address if it chose to do so for future applications for other seasonal farm stands.
I believe you also were asking about the timing of when this is going to be completed. Did you ask that?
Yeah, and I think that just broadly was answered that they could open the facility once they started selling produce, but there was no schedule attached. And yeah, if there is a schedule, that'd be great to know, what's going on with that. But that was kind of the answer, I guess.
Yeah,
I think the building department would have to address that. They have to complete the construction and receive an occupancy permit before they could open it. And then the use would be limited to sales of produce grown on the property.
Supervisor Dirks?
I had the same question that Supervisor Kosmicki had about the size. Was there a limitation? What's the average fruit stand square footage? I too have received a couple inquiries regarding this from residents. And in addition to that, can you please define seasonal and what that looks like, just so that maybe we can, I'm sure that will become an issue once it's open. So I just want to make that clear from the beginning, what a seasonal fruit stand looks like.
I don't have a live definition in front of me, but I anticipate pumpkins in the fall, etc., or other crops that are Bounded Spring, but I haven't heard or know of what they want to plant here. Those are cards being held by the applicant.
Okay, so I just want to be clear that it's going to be open year round because there's other fruit stands that are not open year round. So I was wondering that, sorry, it was probably the way I asked the question. But my question is, will it be open year round or will it be open seasonally?
I don't believe our code is specific in number of days that the stand can be open. Those are decisions that are made by the private businesses.
Dear Supervisor, I mean, we do have the classic Christmas tree lots or pumpkin patches that are regulated countywide as temporary uses for generally 30-day period. A produce stand on a property that's producing produce is a different avenue.
Yeah, my understanding is since it has to be produce that's grown, you couldn't import in pumpkins or Christmas trees. They would have to be pumpkins that are grown on that property or Christmas tree, et cetera. So it could be year round, but it's contingent on they have to be grown. The produce has to be grown there.
Right, and let's just, if I could, Supervisor, thank you. I would just clarify that that's kind of the endemic allowed uses on agricultural property per Council Ellenwood's discussion earlier. One may ask for a discretionary conditional use permit that goes through the public processes to bring more uses and activities to a property, and it's not on the table with us yet.
I'd be happy to send the board copies of the relevant sections of the zoning code that address this. And again, if the board desires to impose definitions of what's seasonal or the size limitations on produce stands, that would be up to the board's discretion to do so. As it exists today, there are no such limitations.
Okay, before we go to public comment, any other questions, Supervisor Hernandez or Gonzalez?
Not at this time, thank you.
None. No, thank you.
Let's go to public comment, please.
If you'd like to make a comment, please press *9 on your phone or the raise your hand icon on your screen. You've been unmuted. Please state your name and you have 2 minutes. You've been unmuted. Please state your name and you have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Mary Shaw Coran. I'm a member of the group Protect San Benito County, which during the campaign, No on Measure K, we were using the name Preserve Our Rural Communities. In any case, you may be aware that 60% of voters, the San Benito County voters in March 2020 voted against development at all the nodes, including Betabel. So, there's a lot of sensitivity here, and people were pretty shocked when the supervisors voted to allow the Betabel developer rezone to C1, a slightly different zone from the C3. And then again, did the same thing for the Highway 129 node. But I wanted to focus on the Betabel node. I think the other thing that shocks everyone is the fact that our planning department has been allowing just a huge I've never heard of a farm stand that's over 6,000 square feet. I think that for a long time, this particular developer, aided by the supervisors, have been really pushing the envelope. And I don't think the average farmer would be allowed to get away with this type of stuff, but he is a very rich man, Ryder McDowell. So I really think there should be a limit on this type of thing, the size of farm stand, especially because he has no farm there. So it's pretty shocking that you allowed this person to build something when he doesn't even have a farm, is growing nothing. I think it's highly suspicious. The other thing that's happened is the photo that Tavin showed is really not that accurate. If you look at it now, there's a huge amount of earth that's been moved. It's a culturally sensitive site for the Amamutsan tribal band. There's been no monitoring. We really want to see an EIR. I remember Anthony Betabel promised.
You've been unmuted. Please state your name and you have 2 minutes.
Hi, this is Andy Shaw Coron. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I want to kind of continue what my wife Mary was saying. People voted against these developments along the Highway 101, the nodes. And I think Supervisor Kosmicki used the word circumvent. This big building, from what I can tell, looks like an element of the original plan that they circulated and sent out to every voter in the county. And essentially what the county building department, maybe under previous leadership, has allowed is for the project to proceed in building elements of the project that is still up for debate as to whether it should really happen or not. And nobody really believes in this county that that is a seasonal farm stand. I mean, if you want to keep credibility with the voters in the county, you don't allow things to proceed like this where people know that it's not genuine, that this is not what the intent of this building is. It's part of a larger project that Ryder McDowell has in mind. And I just think it's a travesty because an average person in this county couldn't get away with something like this. And if you want people to trust the supervisors, you yourselves should be deeply concerned about a building department that allows something like this to go on under false pretexts. Thank you.
You've been unmuted. Please state your name and you have 2 minutes.
Yes, my name is Jackie Morris Lopez, District 2. I'm a resident of San Juan Bautista. I also was an activist in collecting and informing the public of this travesty. Ryder McDowell had one intent, and that's to develop a hotel, a tourist center, a gas station, a small mini mart. This is just what you call the old bait and switch routine. And it's just, just tragic that the previous commission or planning supervisors voted this. And I think there's probably one of you that's still sitting there on the board, perhaps two. I know there are a few of you that went to the ribbon cutting ceremony. I also sympathize with the Amamutsan Native American tribe. This is their jurisdiction. But I just want to say that this is just all semantics. A seasonal fruit stand, there's nothing out there that's been grown. This man is not a farmer. He has no intentions of growing his own crops out there. And that building is humongous. This is not a seasonal fruit stand. This is an eyesore. I live in San Juan Bautista, and every time I have to drive over to Gilroy North, I have to look over there, and it's just a claw. It's just a horrible thing, a reminder that the Board of Supervisors and the county planning commissioners did not respect the will and the vote of the public. This is just a huge slap in the face. And once again, Ryder McDowell is a businessman. This is an investment property for him. He has no intentions of growing any crops on that land. The C1 overlay is just another maneuver to circumvent the law to have the proper permitting. Thank you. And you, current Board of Supervisors, please listen to the speakers that are speaking on behalf of all the issues that we are concerned about. You have a way, you have a mode, a method that you can change this and you can stop this. Thank you.
You've been unmuted. Please state your name and you have 2 minutes.
Dear council members, my name is Valentin Lopez and I am the chairman of the Amamutsun Tribal Band. Thank you for allowing me to speak on Betabel today. Eurostock, Betabel is part of Eurostock. It extends here. Eurostock is the most sacred site of our tribe. Betabel is the most sacred site of our tribe. Ceremonies were held here for thousands of years. Tribes came from as far away as Yosemite and beyond. Eurostock is the home of our spiritual leader, Kuk Sui. Our spiritual leader lived at this place for thousands of years. Native American spirituality, Native American culture has never been respected or protected. If this project was being done on Catholic, Mormon, Muslim, or Jewish sacred grounds, the county wouldn't even think of approving it. But because we're Native American and because we're federally unrecognized, it's not a problem for the county to approve it. Currently, there is a proposal before Santa Clara County to approve a sand and gravel mining permit. This approval would destroy 4 sacred mountains of our tribe. Those sacred mountains are on Eurostock. Eurostock, we requested that an ethnographic study be done on Eurostock. There's very significant reference to Betabel right there that would show you the significance of Betabel. But why hasn't that ethnographic study been requested by the county? If the county cannot get it because of a confidentiality agreement, then we want the county to do their own ethnographic study so they can see how significant Betabel is. Senate Bill 18 was passed in 2004, and this allows tribes and counties to consult with cities and tribes to consult with cities and counties to identify significant cultural sites. We request.
You've been unmuted. Please state your name and you have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. This is Mia Casey from Hollister. You know, given the comments that I just heard, it's exactly what I feared. This item was put on the agenda to allow for more public bashing of the project. It shouldn't be on the agenda and waste time and taxpayer money. The law clearly states an owner of an ag land can build a farm stand. There's no approval or CEQA required. You know, it feels that Senior Supervisor Kosmicki is pushing the agenda of pork again, the group that donated and campaigned to get him in office, and it feels unethical. You know, the developer's been continually hounded, harassed, and embroiled in litigation, as has our county by this same group. They've even stooped to character assassination, as you've just heard. It's wrong, and it shouldn't be encouraged by any supervisor. Supervisor Kosmicki, I read your town hall on Facebook, and it was troubling. You brought up Measure K and claimed Betabel was at the heart of it. It feels you're attempting to stir sentiment against this project. Your statements are misleading, as Measure K was never about approving developments, only about adopting a new type of commercial zoning. As your constituent, I don't appreciate your perpetuation of the misinformation and confusion that has been generated by pork during the election and since. If the county is going to support agritourism, we should support this project, not make each step difficult because a small vocal group who doesn't want any development near their homes and keeps fighting against commercial nodes that have been a part of our general plan for many years. We need to move forward. The Betabel project's a good one for our county. It promotes tourism, provides services for motorists on an 8-mile stretch of highway where there is none, and will bring revenue and jobs to the county. I urge the board to not allow placement of unnecessary items on an agenda that have barely disguised political motives. Thank you.
You've been unmuted. Please state your name and you have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Sarah Clark. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Shoot Mahoney and Weinberger, and I'm here this afternoon on behalf of the Amamutsun Tribal Band. I wanted to note that we submitted a comment letter into the record last night. I hope you've all received and reviewed it. I wanted to comment on 2 of the points raised in the letter. The first, which has been raised by supervisors tonight and by other members of the public, is the absurdity of permitting this as a seasonal produce stand. There's no history of agriculture on the site. It's clear that the developer has plans to bring significant more development to the site. The code says very clearly that he's limited to selling produce grown on the site, but he hasn't had any plans to actually grow said produce or any indication that he's the kind of person that could do so. There's a question asked whether the produce stand should be limited in size. I think definitionally, it's clear that it should have been limited to the size of a sale for the capacity of this site to produce produce. It's a relatively small site. You don't need 7,000 square feet of commercial space in order to sell what you could grow on site. It's a clear definitional requirement that could have been met here. Likewise, what was not shown on the site development photos is that there's grading and infrastructure that goes clearly beyond the site plan that you saw. It's very clearly indicating that he is attempting to get a head start on his other development. And we know that for that other development, there will be additional requirements for CEQA and for a conditional use permit, but this will now be baked into the baseline so that he won't have to consider the impacts of grading and building infrastructure to this site because it's already been built. The board should not have allowed this abuse of its code and should step in now. I also just want to mention that the general plan requires an archaeological report, and that has not been done here. And that goes to the cultural issues and historic issues on the site that should have been studied even in advance of a.
You've been unmuted. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. Please state your name and you have 2 minutes.
Hi, this is Lou Sharamonte with the organization South Bay Indigenous Solidarity. I'm speaking just to address a couple of concerns with the work that has taken place on the property of Betabel so far. The land itself is important to the Amamutsun tribal band. From an archaeological perspective, of course, one of the great concerns is any cultural resources that might exist. Apparently, according to the Betabel project website, something described as a quote-unquote landfill was discovered on the site. That brings up concerns both from an ecological perspective, if it actually did extend into the Pajaro River, as seemed to be indicated, in terms of toxic materials that might have been placed there. But a landfill itself can also be considered a cultural resource, and if anything there was older than about 40 years in age, it potentially could have been considered a historic cultural resource. So it seems it's puzzling to me why construction didn't halt, or cleanup of the site didn't halt when they found as the website describes, tons of refuse materials there. And that just brings into questions the idea of how cultural resource management is being considered, especially regarding this sacred land. Thank you.
You've been unmuted. Please state your name and you have 2 minutes.
Elia Salinas. I too am a Native American. My mother was 75% Native American. And although I do sympathize with the statements that have been said, the Betabel RV park has been there for decades. Where were you when that was being built? Next door was a building that was a flea market. Where were they when that was being approved? And the land has been vacant for many, many decades. So why was not there an effort for this tribe to purchase the land and do something with it themselves that they could come and use it for their sacred activities? If anybody knows agriculture, and I don't think anybody out there has mentioned in the pub to you as the supervisors know agriculture, the facility itself being built is not all going to be 100% the fruit stand. You need a place to store, you need a place to process, and you need a place to package what you have processed. You've got to clean what's going out there, what's going to be grown out there. And you're right, nothing has been grown out there, because first you got to finish this find out what it is that you can only plant if it's seasonal, and if your facility is not ready, why would you start planting something that's going to be right before you even have a place to sell it? So maybe if somebody learned a little bit about agriculture, they might be able to answer their own questions without confusing or trying to confuse and trying to divert what's actually going out there. And I believe that I believe in the first project that was being brought out there, it hasn't happened. It's not going to happen, but I have full confidence in the planning department. And I was kind of offended where they're accusing the planning department.
You've been unmuted. Please state your name and you have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is John Casey, and I'm a resident of Hollister. I did a quick look, and the average size of the farm stands about 5,000 to 8,000 square feet, so we're right in there. I feel there's been a mischaracterization of what Measure K was about. It was never about all the nodes. It was just changing to a more restricted C3 zoning. It was never to stop the project. The project went forward under its original C1 zoning. I think the personal attacks against the developer are ridiculous when there's no proof of anything wrong. He hasn't done anything wrong yet. So why would you characterize it as doing something wrong? Where was everybody when the Pajaro River was getting cleaned up with the supposed sacred trash that was getting cleaned up? It seems very ridiculous to me. And I think the attacks on the planning department should be stopped. And anybody that's calling the planning department and threatening them should be looked at carefully by both the council and the police department. I just think there's, that this should move forward. Let the planning do what it's supposed to do. And when they're ready for the next phase of this, then we can take a look at it and see what we want in that area. Thank you.
You've been unmuted. Please press *6 to unmute yourself and state your name, and you have 2 minutes.
Hello there, this is Rob Bernowski in District 4. And I just want to say, with all due respect to the Indian tribes, again, I don't know if that was really settled when 101 was put in there. But aside from that, look, fruit stands, yes, for us being recognized as a county and bringing in tax dollars and hiring children or school age people to work there, bringing in all the sales tax revenue and adding to the Western agricultural culture that we have here in San Benito County. This is all really good for us. And I go to Casa de Fruta to get my garlic pistachios, my pomegranate juice, corn on the cob, things along those lines. And I would much rather spend that money that the Bernowski family does within our own county. This would be regarded as an asset. And I just hope that you look at it as keeping San Benito what San Benito is for a very long time. And again, Casa de Fruta, it was just a fruit stand at one time, right? So was Knott's Berry Farms down in Orange County. I'm not advocating that we do that, but good things can come from this over the next 50 years. So, and of course, we want to support the family farmer. I don't care if he grows them or he's buying product from other farmers in the region. As long as we're supporting agriculture and tourism, that's a good thing. Thank you very much.
You've been unmuted. Please state your name and you have 2 minutes.
Benny Drescher, thank you. I am here to speak about the cultural morality of pursuing agriculture without regard to what may be in the land. I know that agricultural endeavors in California do not require archaeological monitoring for practical reasons and related to the amount of land that needs to be tilled for agriculture, etc. This is an exception, I think, to that rule where as you have heard already today, this is the most sacred site of the Amamutsun tribal band. And I do not want to speak on behalf of them. I cannot. I simply called to express the sentiment that we all benefit greatly from eons, very literally eons of stewardship of this land. We are blessed to be living here with the abundance that has come forth as a result of this stewardship. And the least we can do is listen to the descendants of these stewards and acknowledge that the remains of those who have been stewarding this land should be respected, and we should do everything we can to respect the cultural needs that they request. These needs are very important to their to spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being. And if we're not looking out for each other,
Thank you. Now I'll turn to the board for further comments. Supervisor Dirks?
No further comments.
Supervisor Kuzmicki?
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Tiffany. So I brought this forward. Let's get realistic here. Seasonal farm stands are typically very small operations. They're more like a shack on the side of the road. And I believe that's the expectation from the lay public when you mention this sort of a building. When you say seasonal produce stand, you're not envisioning what's going on there. So, but for something small in nature like that, I understand why there's a process in place to forego some of that extensive planning. But this is alarming. This is a 7,130 square foot building. That's a big, big building. And I'm not sure where one of the callers found an average size quickly of 5,000 to 8,000 square feet, but I just did a quick look and found nothing of the sort. So I don't know where that's coming from, but that doesn't add up to me at all. The definition of a farm stand, when you look it up, is a farm stand or produce stand that's owned by a farmer or at or near a farm. Our own definition requires the property sell only produce grown on the property. So this has nothing to do with politics or Protect San Benito. I didn't discuss this with Protect San Benito before I brought this to the board. This has to do with someone potentially making a mockery of our own planning processes. And I think everybody should be alarmed by that, whether you supported Measure K, whether you support development at the Betabel, it's our planning process integrity that is at stake here. I have three main concerns: allowing the size of a building to move forward, allowing this size of a building to move forward without permitting or environmental review. What sort of assurance we have that this building will only sell produce grown on the property? And it's really important to note, and also lastly, the sensitivity of the land, the Native American land that was really disregarded here. It's important to note there is, as some of the callers said, there's no produce grown on the property. There wasn't any produce grown on the property when it was approved. I want to make sure residents know I'm questioning this. I oppose this as it stands simply because of the integrity issue. This building does not in any way resemble a typical seasonal farm stand, and I have serious doubts that it will fit the definition of a seasonal farm stand or the perception of what a seasonal farm stand is once it's done. I see this as a very, very dangerous precedent. If we allow this to move forward under this sort of designation and potentially have somebody turn around and apply for a conditional use permit after the fact, that could open up a lot of problems down the road for other developers that may take a similar approach. So for me, we have two issues to address here: the flaw in the planning process that allows this sort of structure to go forward without a proper review. And then we absolutely must make sure the property does in fact only sell produce grown on the property going forward. What I would suggest are a couple things for a future agenda. Bring back a future agenda item to change the code and to specifically put in a limitation on the size of the building that would be allowed under this designation as a seasonal farm stand, and to bar any consideration of a conditional use permit at this property at any point down the road, since they've already gone forward and got through to this point. They've already basically built a building without any permitting. So if there's any potential of somebody coming to us later and asking for a conditional use permit, I think we should nip that in the bud now. That's the responsible thing to do. Mark my words, I'm predicting, I'm not assuring, but I suspect, highly suspect, this property owner is going to turn around and request a conditional use permit, and any consideration of that would be a shame. Thank you.
Comments from Supervisor Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there's a lot of different layers to this. Has been around for a long time. And as far as the planning process, I mean, I would imagine that we would have been getting, that's why we have county council and we have our planning. Basically, they're telling us that this is something that is doable. And if there was any legal issues, I'm pretty sure they would have made us privy to it. But the bottom line is, if we're really so environmentally focused, I'm trying to understand why we would rather keep it the way it was before, when there was an illegal activity. I want to say cannabis activity on the property. There was a lot of dumping. Obviously, with cannabis, you're dealing with chemicals, and then there was a lot of garbage. The Pajaro River was at one time filthy and full of junk, and now he's literally reclaiming that property. I actually toured the property, and there's going to be a big focus on an environmental stewardship. And the river itself used to have steelhead a long time ago, and they were dying off because of how filthy that water was. And it seems like that's what we would have preferred, according to Supervisor Kosmicki, because ultimately now that they're coming back to life, I guess that's not a good thing. And I'm just trying to rationalize this sentiment. At the end of the day, I feel like what's happening now is actually a good thing, because there's a focus on restoring that land, restoring that property. And obviously it's ultimately this landowner that's using the property, and he's trying to create a commercial environment, which I know, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, the county has been really focused on trying to generate revenue. And this is, I mean, we don't have a gas station. We don't have other things that generate revenue off of the 101. We're the only county. And it's curious how all of a sudden this stuff is coming up at the end when there was plenty of time to go through the process to address any concerns prior. I respect everybody's opinion, but sorry, it just seems a little too late for me. I feel like it's already gone through the process, and I don't want to hold it up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Gonzalez, do you have any comments?
Hello?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry. Somehow somebody took control of my mute. I don't have any further comments to add other than I'm reluctant to change the rules of the game in the middle of the game. This application is in. It was approved for a seasonal fruit stand. Obviously, the specs show the size and square footage on the application that's in the PowerPoint presentation. So I don't see anything being circumvented at this time. I understand there's some concerns. I was the second supervisor to approve it so that this was an item that came back for our review, but I didn't think that we're going to rehash the same thing over and over the last two elections. We have to stop doing this to ourselves, and we have to stop doing this to our community. We make a decision, we move on, and we have to move forward. And so that's all I'm going to say. This was just a presentation at this point, informational, and I'm not interested in rewriting any ordinance or any policy right now after the fact. That's all.
Thank you. My comments, I'm going to agree with parts of pretty much what every supervisor said in some ways. First of all, I would agree with Supervisor Gonzalez. I don't think that we should make a change to this particular situation in the middle of the process. This was approved, and I think we need to have it go forward, although we obviously do need to ensure that they are following exactly what is required of a seasonal fruit stand. At the same time, I would agree that we may want to take a look at the ordinance for future seasonal fruit stands, because it does seem to me that there should be a little bit more definition as to what is a seasonal fruit stand, and the size seems like there should be some limitations. So there is no appearance of trying to, as was said, circumvent the process. With that being said, I do have a hard time, although I want to be sensitive to the area and some of the comments we've made, but I do have a hard time with the fact that, I mean, this area was an eyesore, and it was a dumping ground in the Pajaro River, as Supervisor Hernandez said. This area has been dramatically cleaned up. So to say that, they're upset because there's a larger building there now, I don't understand, again, where, and one of the people commented, were the complaints before, when it was, it was much more of an eyesore and a dumping ground previously. And then lastly, I would say that once again, just have to remind everyone that we as a county badly need more revenue for all of the things that we want to do. For the priorities that we want to address, we need more money, whether it be for dealing with roads or helping assist for homelessness or affordable housing or parks, on and on and on. We need more revenue. We need more revenue in the unincorporated areas of the county. And it just makes unbelievably good sense to try to do it in the areas where there can be so-called commercial nodes, particularly along places like Highway 101. And so, I mean, long-term, and this is certainly nothing new, I've been a strong advocate for development. It's got to go through the proper review and planning and impact review, and all things have to be considered and approved properly. But I'm a large supporter of, further developing this area along 101. So those are my comments. This was just a presentation today, so there's no action item on it.
Mr. Chair, can I clarify though?
Yeah, sure.
The future part, because that's all I was asking for.
Yeah,
I was just asking for consideration.
Go ahead.
I wasn't referring to, they're already building this building. We can't do
understand.
anything about it. I was referring to the future seasonal farms, any other sort of seasonal farm stand proposal that might come forward, that we should have something in the books. And if I can bring it up now or the future.
Yeah, and I would be supportive of taking a look at that for the future.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we are moving on to item number 11.